Hey everyone, my name is Lester Martin from Starburst. I'm a developer advocate here, and I am trying real hard to see if we get a show off the ground. Not even a show, more like office hours around data engineering, data analysis, data science, AI, the movement, the manipulation of data, um, and make it in an AMA format. Ask me kind of anything. This is number three, and the turnouts have only been, so high so far. And that's okay. We're just trying to establish a footing, see if it makes some sense, see if we can build a little bit of an audience, and reevaluating the theory as we go along. Probably what I'm going to do in the future is probably give not just a little note about what we might talk about to spark some interest, but we might have a topic. So if we had a topic for today, which we kind of sort of do, it's going to be around PyStarburst. That's an environment that we can write Python code, Dataframe API, Python code that's going to execute not in a Spark application or some other place. It's going to execute actually in Trino and Starburst and that kind of good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. In case anyone's here, I would love you just to shout out, make a comment, where you're from, all that kind of good stuff. I'll go ahead and just for folks that are maybe watching this after the fact, put a little content on the screen there. Connection before content. There's a little bit about me. Main thing I would say is at the bottom, DevRel at Starburst IO is a great place to reach me. And while you see a lot of Starburst logos on here, the intention of this meetup, this session, this office hours, these ask me anything, whatever, is really, like I said, just to have an open forum, humble, honest, direct kind of conversation about this space. I've been lucky enough to be in it for a solid decade now and be at it a little bit longer than that. Um, as with all asking me anything, there ought to be some general ground rules, and there's the general ground rules. Keep it professional, keep it pretty much on task, don't get crazy, being disrespectful to each other and other companies, other technologies, and absolutely, there's no perfect answers to just about anything that we do in this space. So it often depends on what you're trying to do. So never get mad at the consultant when you ask them a question. They say, well, what are we trying to do? And it depends. So those things are really valuable. And then, of course, probably more related to Trino and Starburst. We have some forums there, but you can ask anything you want to out there. I'm looking at it all the time. But another forum for kind of Q&A. So as promised, the thinking from now on is probably going to be have a topic and just to get the conversation started. But to reiterate that, I keep looking up in my upper right. Why? Because there's the conversation, the chat window. And if I see some feedback, if I see somebody have something to say, I'm going to take a pause and we'll focus on that. And last time, if you go back and watch episode 2, you'll see we had a couple of those opportunities. Went back and actually had some really broad questions, which was a lot of fun. All right, so I only have one slide, then I think I'll go and do some demos and stuff. But what is PyStarburst? Well, if you've heard of PySpark, heard of Spark, heard of Spark SQL, the Spark Dataframe API, and there's lots of other Dataframe APIs, then you know a lot about what PyStarburst looks like from the outside. It's a Dataframe API library. You write in Python using that library, and you get the concepts and the approaches you're used to, lazy execution, immutable data sets, all that functional programming that exists all over the place. And you get it where once it actually hits an action, gets past that lazy execution, it's time to do something. What is it really going to do? It's going to run some work over there in the Starburst. So a couple things. Let's see what I mean by that. Well, one, I got a link to the docs. The docs will take you to here. Looking up for some questions. Don't see one. Talk a little bit about it. Pretty easy stuff. Pip install, PyStarburst, you're off and running. A few lines of code to kind of get your session rolling. And then from there, what do you need to know about? Probably you care about, what's the API look like? So all that documentation is available to us. But what's also pretty cool right here on this link, and here I'll just put this in the chat. Let's see here. speakers. Well, I'll put it in the chat later. I'm having trouble finding the chat. I'll put this API in there. But main thing I would say is click on this cool thing. It says demo. Let's see some demo code. And what that's going to do is take you to a GitHub project over here in the Starburst data project account. But the repo is called PyStarburst examples. Now, there's more going on here that I'm going to focus on. But I will tell you, if you take a quick brief look here, if you don't already have, if you have your own Jupyter environment set up, use that and come grab these notebooks. But if you want to just have the least possible barrier to enter, hit this big old button that says launch. So I'm going to hit this launch button, and I'm going to do two things. One, this is going to spin up an environment. But the second is I probably forgot, I should have come over here to Starburst Galaxy and get all signed in. So I'll do that in the background as well. So see how it looks good, sign me in. And actually, while I'm over there, I'm going to have it run a quick query just so we have this thing operational. So this is just Starburst Galaxy, a Trino piece of software. I probably have something here near worth reading. If not, there we go, sample data that's in the free cluster. All right, let that get that started. All right, so what happened when I hit that launch icon over there in the GitHub project? It spun this environment up right here in my browser. And what do I see? I've got Jupyter off and running. And I would just click here under notebooks. And I'm going to focus on this notebook called Astronauts or Astronauts Underbar Windows. Now, as I promised a minute ago, if you use PyStarburst, again, for the folks that are out here, welcome. Just doing a walkthrough of PyStarburst, Dataframe API with Python that executes in Trino, but glad to stop and take any questions at all about just about anything that I see in the chat, and absolutely if something of interest here as well. So just giving us something to focus on and have some eyeballs in case there's not a question actively rolling in. Now, the bigger question might be, are there questions rolling in and I'm missing them? I don't think so. Let me look at that one more time. Okay, good. Comments. There we go. Wrong tab. There we go. I found it. So don't see any good comments. All right, that's great. What are you doing here? Remember I said in the docs? Well, first thing you got to do is you got to run a pip install. So this little environment, fine, we'll kick off the pip install PyStarburst. That runs, does a little mojo, sets things up. Pretty normal. Now, again, if this was your own personal local environment or server environment that you have Python, you don't need to do that. You did it once and it's already there. And from there, I'm going to actually do another little a paragraph here that's going to say, hey, tell me the host name, the username, and the password of some Trino environment. That Trino environment I'm using is this world over here. And what I need to do there is, while I know them, I'll just show you in this world, I can go under clusters, and I'm using this one called the free cluster. I can just hit this connect page here and do something like, hey, drivers and clients, that kind of stuff, PyStarburst. And really, there's the answers I'm looking for. That's my particular server at the moment, or host. So there we go. That's in there. And then it's going to want my username. And the username, we usually are talking about username / the role is the ideal way to do that. So there's my username role. And then, of course, it's going to ask for my password. And make sure I hope I got that one right. We'll find out in a minute. Bad news is that that just saves something local. We won't know if that actually worked until we hit a run on something of more interest. So this actually is going to go out there, take that information I just supplied, make a connection, do a create. And yes, I think I messed up with my password probably. So long message to tell me that. That's what happened in there. All right, so let's see if Lester can fix that right quick here with remembering what its password is. So one way to do that is this. Lester drags this off screen, looks at the chat window for a minute and see what happens. All right, so I'm going to log out and log in and make sure I know what my password is one more time. Sign back in. Oh, well, I thought that's what I typed. I guess I'm going to try it one more time. I'm going to rerun this and hopefully get that in there again. Hmm. I'm going to pause there for a moment. A live session, and then I can't type my password in there. Well, that's really slick for sure. All right, no questions out there. We got a small group. I see two folks with me here. Thank you for being here. Anyone out there used PySpark? Anyone out there use PySnow or IBIS or even just basic, not basic, but pandas or pandas start with Spark would be interesting to hear about. In the meantime, like I said, I will try to reload this activity here. Hearing a lot of knots. I did want to see this work, so let's see if I can get it going. I'm in the background getting those cluster details one more time to paste them in there. And then I'll try to see what I did wrong. Surely I didn't mess up my password, I hope. Try this again. Boom. Sets that. Grab that. Said, well, that was not my host name. So well, that's not right either. Lester. All right. Oh, I flipped them. That's what I did wrong anyway. I flipped the host name and the password. I did it too fast. There we go. That's what it was. All right. Well, I still want my username. Okay. Let's see if it'll help us this time. I do it in the right order. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. If I rebuild this, see if that worked. And then I'm going to just run one more, cross my fingers, and hope that doesn't blow up. All right. It worked. Yay. What happened is I put the my username in place of the host name and the host name in place of username. Why? Sadly, because I was in a hurry and I grabbed them and just made the assumption they were in this order. I wasn't even reading them. So, nonetheless, we're here, we're there, we're off and running. So, really, what do I want to do? Again, with no questions, I'm just kind of give you, I'm not going to really focus on trying to explain the data frame API. I'll just show you that this data frame API works pretty good. So here we are, in Trino land, we have this notion of connector dot schema dot table or object like a view or something. So I said, hey, grab the API function called table, just supply a table, and then show me the schema. And that was this kind of ugly. And then I did a show command, which is this kind of ugly. But I wanted to see it in an ugly format. Why? Because more than likely, you're going to be able to do something a little bit more useful to all that. You're going to be able to start doing things by saying, hey, I don't need to see everything. Two examples of looking at the schema, just basically looped through it and said, hey, just show it to me a little bit nicer, the fields and data types. And then there's that same table again, but this time I just simply said, hey, I really only want a couple of the columns. I did a select on about 4 of the columns. I renamed them just to make the titles a little shorter. I did a filter command. I did a sort command. And again, if you've never seen a data frame API, that's kind of what it looks like here. We use this kind of classic programming model. We get an object, it's a data frame. Think of it maybe like a table or the results from a table, and so on and so on and so on. So here, I'll just run a couple of them so you can see they work. Again, mission wasn't necessarily to walk each one of those through there, but this is a good example if you really are just this one probably more than getting your feet wet. This is probably more of a hey, compare and contrast what we can do in the Trino Starburst world with the classic Spark world because I'm doing a little bit more advanced stuff. Start to get into windowing and if you're familiar with that, partition by and all that kind of good stuff. But some of the stuff is pretty straightforward, just classic aggregations. But I try to keep it, like I said, a little bit more advanced than just the first 5 seconds. This could take us probably, half an hour to hour and a half to kind of walk through this and discuss these functions, so on and so on and so forth. All right, so I will stop all that exciting screen share. Let me stop the share. Go back to my pretty face here, and I'll actually be able to swing over the notes here. I think we got a really, really small crew here today. And I think with that really small crew, maybe the best thing to do is just you know, wait a few more moments here. But, if today's not the day where you got your question you want to ask, that's okay. We'll try it again. And as I said before, we'll try to find that right tempo. Trying to find the right audience, but we definitely need a tempo. I think I pushed it a little too hard. I think I'd come out once a week, maybe slow down every other week, and do it as much as anything with a topic that actually I'm going to lecture, show, demo, whatever it is. And then if there are questions, and if we can evolve to the point where the questions dominate, that'll be so much the better. My book, but I'm not so sure we're exactly there. Just that. So that said, I think I'll go ahead and shut her down a little bit early, just since volume's a little low. And thank those that did show up. Great. And anyone watching this, take a good look, see what's going on. I will go back by that time. You'll probably have seen some comments. I'll reference these pages, these demos, in case you want to give those a try yourself. All right. Appreciate you. Bye now.